This War of Mine is a new, unique take on video games about war. You play as potential survivors on the neglected end of a civil war inspired by real historical events in Eastern Europe. Is this War of Mine merely an attempt at profiting from tragedy, or is it an example that video games can be so much more than just a source of entertainment? Join us on the couch to find out. This War of Mine is, at its core, a survival or resource management simulation game. The best way I can describe it is Oregon Trail meets Fallout Shelter, inspired by the historical siege of Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You play as a group of civilians trying to survive without consistent food, water, power, or security. You spend the days at your shelter building comforts and improvement while taking care of your survivors' needs. During the nights, you assign survivors to either sleep, guard to prevent raids, or scavenge. While scavenging, you fill up the character's inventory with materials, food, medicine, and junk parts that can be refurbished. Trading can be done randomly during the day or in certain areas at night, with a barter system employed. A balance must be struck between scavenging for supplies to upgrade the shelter and keeping survivors' needs met. These needs include hunger, sickness, wounded, fatigue, and overall mood. Significant penalties in any category can impact work speed or focus, or cause survivors to leave the shelter. Any work done around the shelter or scavenging requires clicking an icon, playing out like an emotionally charged click-and-point ant farm. The overall mood of the game really captures what it must be like to live in these conditions: dark, gloomy, and hopeless. The music is limited to a few slow, soothing guitar playing at the shelter, giving a temporary sense of calm and safety. During scavenging, an atmospheric ambient track plays, keeping players on their toes. Throughout, artillery bombing and gunfire can be heard and seen in the background, a constant reminder of the stakes at play, chilling to remember these have been and are some people's reality. The game has very little color, with most of the environment some shade of gray or brown. This does reinforce some stereotypes of Eastern European cities, despite having been made by a Polish company, but given the subject, this may be unavoidable. It features a huge cast of potential survivors, including a few children with the Little Ones DLC and even more NPCs. As often in war, there is no obvious good side, as both sides commit atrocities. There is only the powerful and the powerless, and in this War of Mine, you are the powerless. The locations are also extremely diverse, from abandoned supermarkets to army-occupied airports to rebel-held hospitals. With multiple scenarios per location, over a dozen starting scenarios, and countless survivor combinations, no two attempts will be the same in the chaos of war. Besides the historical context, there is no overarching narrative other than survival. Each character does have their own individual stories, slowly expanded through the days. Each character will also react in their journals to events or actions of others, such as stealing from innocents or the death of a fellow civilian. Every so often, neighbors can drop by asking for assistance or offering helpful supplies. These interactions can change depending on the player's responses. For example, if you fail to collect 2 bottles of pills for some kid's mom, they may later ask you to spare a survivor or to carry her to a hospital. Playable characters will often make comments about their circumstances, but these often miss the mark, such as wishing wounds be bandaged when they already have been, or commenting they have a tool for a locked door when no such tool is in their possession. Much of the other standalone stories are locked behind purchasable DLC, but despite only adding a little flair, they are cheap and often go towards charity. As of last year, 11-Bit Studio raised over $500,000 for War Child, a non-profit that, according to their website, quote, works toward a world in which no child's life is torn apart by war, because no child should be part of war, ever, end quote. This War of Mine transcends being just a video game. It also serves as an educational tool in some ways that traditional literature cannot capture. This summer of 2020, This War of Mine became the first video game to be included in recommended reading lists for Polish high school, elevating video games as a whole to potentially powerful tools. Like art, this War of Mine asks tough questions to expand our awareness and deepen our collective moral intuitions. Graphically, this War of Mine is not a very demanding game. Its style plays out like a pencil sketch in the Journal of a Survivor, with pencil sketching used in place of traditional fog of war. At a side angle, it looks like a more complicated ant farm. Trash, rubble, and usable obstacles often intermingle, making it hard to differentiate. Most of the assets have a lot of detail, but they are often missed out on due to zooming restrictions. Very few load times and barely any storage space used means this is a great game to keep on your console of choice. This is a weird game to attach words like entertainment and value because it is much more than the sum of its parts. From just a gaming perspective, this War of Mine will be very satisfying and rewarding to fans of survival games, resource management, base builders, or even fans of emotionally investing simulation games like The Sims. This game is often not fun per se, and can be frustrating or even downright heartbreaking. It's a powerful reminder of difficult situations real people who likewise thought this wouldn't happen to me find themselves in. Some of the content on the PC is blocked by DLC which must be bought, with each console having a different version with different content. The PS4 and Xbox One both include the Little Ones DLC for $20 total. On the PC, $20 will only get you the base game. The Switch has a complete edition featuring all DLC, but only at $40. Getting all DLC on the PC will only cost an additional $12, with the $5 Little Ones bringing the most change to core gameplay. Which version depends on personal preference and which content is prioritized, with even just the base game providing a rich, deep, provocative experience. While some may have their spirits broken after the death of their most relatable survivor, others may get a lot of playtime if they can bear the emotional burden. I myself, as of this recording, have almost 60 hours clocked with only the $20 base game. With such radically different packages and potential playtimes, this is a hard game to assign an entertainment value. It can be anywhere from $1 an hour to, in my case, 33 cents an hour or even better. This War of Mine has earned 5 out of 5 cushions from the couch, both for its satisfying gameplay, but also its subject matter, which is gracefully addressed. I felt strongly about this game during its release, and it's a game I return to due to its accessibility, difficulty, and real-world relevance. Despite this War of Mine's relatability to some number, most people playing this game have had or will have no exposure to either side of the coin of these circumstances. I would never suggest that this War of Mine serves as an analogous substitute, but it does serve to remind us of a reality few think about because we often don't encounter it. This game is extremely immersive, if not for all the wrong reasons, but rather than simply profit from tragedy, the developers have created one of the most important games of the decade. One poor decision can often spiral your shelter out of control, and with no reset button to undo a day's mistake. This War of Mine serves as a cautionary tale that some mistakes cannot be unmade, and the horrors of war ought to be avoided at all cost. Much of the conflict in the world are generated from nationalist ideologies designed to divide, the infinitely ugly legacy of economic colonialism, and a dwindling of finite resources as man-made climate change becomes irreversible. It's often not the civilians at the helms of these issues, but we are always the ones to suffer most. With events in the Crimean Peninsula, Middle East, and most recently the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, this War of Mine is more relevant now than ever. Appreciate you staying so far. If you found any value from this review, please give it a like. We're a small channel with big dreams and everything helps. And if you want to see more from us in the future, join us on the couch by hitting that subscribe button.